Wicked. Here we are with A to Z. The A to Z. Adam Zaks, how's it going, bro?
Really good. How are you?
I'm how am I? I'm feeling really good. I just did a live meditation guided. I was actually guided in the meditation by a lovely woman named Shuan from Wales, on over on Instagram, and we did just like a freestyle, just dropped into flow, and we literally just met yesterday, and we met like a week ago via online, and we were like, let's do a little live meditation to the tribe, and very
I watched
very
a little bit of it. Yeah.
yeah, very unplanned, and we just jumped straight in, and it got good response, and already the feedback has been great. People have been replying, going, "Thank you so much. I got so much out of that. It was a really short thing," and we're looking at doing something more regular as well. So I'm thinking having a regular Mindful Monday or something, and bring some guests on to do some guided stuff and do some myself as well. So I'm really feeling in flow, really in the flow, really aligned, really, on path, on purpose, in my center. I'm feeling really heart open, vulnerable, open, loving, loved, held, in flow. Yeah. Very, very kind of balanced in my feminine and masculine. So that's the long shot of it. If you're just asking me any day, I could just say I'm feeling good.
Yeah,
Standard
cool.
response.
Because
Standard response.
recently, yeah, man. And recently, see, that was a complex response, right? And recently, when people have been asking me, "How are you?" I I've started to say the answer. I've started to say complex,
Yeah.
because I want answers, and so these these long answers were leading for them to then go, "Oh, but I was just asking how you were," and I go, "But I was just telling you." And so I, I found some better answers for myself. See, your physiology hears the answer, and then the person who's asking you then also hears the answer.
Mm.
So not only do I want my physiology to hear a better answer, but I also want to get the person who's asked the question to think about the answer and also to ask better questions.
Yeah, nice. And so on that note, how you doing?
I am very inspired at the moment, and
Mm.
feel very aligned with what you said about feeling very vulnerable and in my heart at the moment. I've been doing a lot of meditations recently myself on getting rid of mind and headspace, because there's so much of this mind clutter in the world, um, covering up our shiny truth, which really shines through our soul and through our heart. And
Mm.
so the aim for me is continuously in this heart space, and it's often what I present and show to my clients, that if you make decisions more based on your heart, then you're going to get a much more fulfilling and authentic life from that.
Nice one. Nice one. Not too complex. Pretty good. Pretty pretty straightforward answer there. I like it. I like it. Open, vulnerable, inspired. That's a really good one. Inspiration. I feel. I was talking. I'm always talking. It seems to someone about something, and and oftentimes I'm listening and asking questions, and listening deeply in between the lines. And I think it was to one of my clients, or to a group of my clients on a coaching call, and we were describing the different traits that great leaders have, and it was in like the level 5 of one of our calls, which is all about expression and embodying the leadership qualities, the innate visionary leader that is within us all, the leader that was infused in us in the sperm that got us to the egg. To, like, there has to be some sort of champion gene going on there,
Yeah.
and we was talking about the qualities that or the traits and the qualities that a visionary or a leader has, and the difference between good and great. Like, we were like, yeah, well, what's a good leader? And we gave all the traits, and then it was like, what's a great leader then? If that's a good leader, what's that 1%, that top 1% of the 1%? I'd be curious to know what you what kind of traits you've noticed in good and great leaders.
Yeah. Well, what I've noticed in myself and what I've noticed in great leaders, and it's in line of that. It kind of takes one to know one sort of thing, and I think that's why we resonate with each other. But I've often really felt, it's not something that I've come up with myself, but I've really felt this to be true, and that is that private practice leads to public success, and it doesn't have to necessarily be from a business and kind of like money point of view, but from a life point of view, that if you truly work on the inner game, then the outer game really shines. And then through that, you can be a leader through, if you're coming from an empty place, it's very hard to give. But if you've got a full cup, then that essence can be properly tasted by the world.
Mm-hmm. I like it a lot. It's so in that, what would be a breakdown of those, of what you've just shared there, in terms of like what would be the traits that are embodied in that?
Oh, right. Yeah. So like a breakdown. So I guess what you mean by that is we're going into sort of our daily routine. I think having a daily routine and having a list that you continuously do every day. I know, and it seems that you do a similar thing for yourself.
Mm.
I love the name of your business and your concept and your company, the flow zone, right? Because it is very much about getting into the flow zone for yourself, to get into this flow state. We're very reactive when we wake up in the morning, or we have been conditioned by society to be very reactive through Facebook, through our phones, through Instagram. And if in that initial reaction when you wake up, that the leaning towards the notifications, or the first inclination, which is how you're feeling when you're trying to get into your waking hormones, you're still in your sleep hormones. So a waking body who's in its asleep hormones, and that transition, if you instantly react to that feeling of, I'm still feeling sleepy, I'm still feeling tired, I'm still feeling lethargic and sort of down and groggy, and then you believe that to be true as you, then you can take that into your day, and your whole day is spoilt by that initial belief that you're subpar, that you're undernourished in some way. But to create a sort of a response to these feedback systems from our body and go, no, that's cool. Like, you watch that feeling and then have a routine that gets you into, as you would say, a flow state or a flow zone. This flow zone is then creativity and inspiration, and where the real magic of life occurs. It's where you can create real change in the world, because you're coming from this abundance and you're coming from this good feeling. So affirmation, definitely, breathing, yoga, stretching. I skip at times. I sing, I dance. I know that you put out a question recently on how do people get into the flow zone, and I really feel and I really believe that it's important to do this on rising, because you wouldn't want to sort of go through half the day's already gone, and then try to go trying to play catch up.
Mm.
Half the day's gone. You want to have a whole day of goodness, not
Definitely,
partial day.
sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes sense to get into this stuff straight away.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm hearing there is almost like a reflexiveness, what I would call reflexive, as opposed to the reflective, or it's like reflective versus reflexive. Like, most people are operating on that reflex. It's like, it's just what happens, rather than I'm actually going to take some time to decide here and ask myself, what do I want, and then choose, rather than just responding to what happens, or reacting, as you said, to whatever is happening just by an urge, or by like a particular drug that gets squirted in the brain or the body, like an urge to reach towards something, an addiction for the dopamine, for that notification, or for that whatever it is, hit the alarm clock. And it's like, already you're starting on this kind of, I don't want to deal with the day, I'm avoiding. It's this avoidance mechanism, or a clinging mechanism, rather than dropping into that space of presence where the reflective mind can come into play, and we can start responding to our world in a way that, you know, puts us in control and puts us in that flow zone, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's just the human in poetry. It's just poetry in motion. When you get into that flow, it's all of the romance that you can add to life from that. It is the poetry of life by being in that state.
The rhythm and poetry, rap. That's why I love flowing as well.
And I do a bit of that too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's true. You know, I can share one. I can share one of those, and you know,
Give
for
it to
any,
us.
if any of your listeners have ever hit rock bottom, I found that in my greatest depths of rock bottom, I found that fulfillment, inspiration, but particularly fulfillment, finding what really fulfills you and living through that is what lifts you out of that darkness, like a phoenix rising through the flames. And so on fulfillment is the greatest warmth for the coldest night. It's the fire that burns when there is no light. And so fulfillment, allowing the light to shine even in the darkest night.
Yes, the darkest nights. I love that. It reminds you of this one: the darkest nights and brightest stars are in the now. So when's the start? If the end is in the past, away deceased and injured hearts. It just hit me over the.
Yeah.
Like, just carry that flow on. It's a beautiful thing, just flowing with the words and that free association and putting yourself in that state of just catching the words as they come. And even that's why I love the format of this show. It's just like, hey, let's just have a chat, have a yarn. I'll ask some questions. We'll get to know one another, get to flow, get to just really hit that kind of flow jam state. You know, it's like we're just jamming here, and there's no prior like, oh, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to have some set questions? Or it's just like, well, let's just catch up at a time. Let's see where it takes us. No edits. There's no like editing this perfect thing and the best of. It's just like, boom, start to end. Let's see what flows. And, you know, I really love that format.
I think we really gravitated towards each other because of that. And even off camera, you know, I said, I don't even remember how we connected. Somehow we did, because it was just a like-mindedness of this energy.
100%. Talk to us about A to Z. I'm curious to know, more about. I know I've asked you in the past, but it seems so epic. The A to Z is just like the whole plethora. So talk to us more about that, please.
It is epic, and it's kind of like this never-ending mountain to climb. But I do see the beautiful journey in it, and I do see it coming to a finality from a point of view of conceptual and a writing point of view. The A to Z Health program, I would think of it as a beautiful manifestation of life. So it's kind of like a poetic philosophy, and very focused on health. And the way I got to that was I was a professional soccer player, and I was embarking on a contract in the English Premier League, and I got injured. I got a groin injury, which I now have helped several people with that injury. It's funny how certain things that hurt us is something that we can help people with. That was just a small lesson along the way, but a much bigger, more profound thing happened after that, and that was that I had started studying to be a personal trainer. And because of this physical love of training 4 hours a day with my soccer, I thought, well, I'll help other people to be good at fitness. But I didn't realize at the time that I was embarking on something much greater and much bigger than just fitness. Because halfway through the year in 2004, I got a burst appendix, which almost killed me.
Ouch.
And my life flashed in front of my eyes, and I thought, wow, at 19 years old, what, this is it for me? This is really it. I saw all the friends that I've ever come into contact with, my family, that my dog that had passed away when I was a kid. It all had flashed in front of my eyes. What, really? Now we're going to go? This is it? And it was a pain that I wouldn't wish on the worst of people in the world. And
What was
so,
it like? Can you describe it? Like, what was the circumstances? Was it was
well,
it?
it is a very indescribable pain. You know, I had appendicitis for 3 days, thinking it was just severe gastro, and because of my pain tolerance
Oof.
and having old school parents, you know, it's okay, tough it out. You'll get better. Stomach pain, but it wasn't a stomach pain.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, looking back at the modern Western diet of sports people, you know, it's the 6 or 7 meals a day, and it's very grain based, and you know, a lot of bread and cereal and pasta and all this sorts of stuff. And you know, looking back and studying the digestive system, I realized that this is very inflaming to the digestive system. It doesn't recognize that as stuff that the body can use as a fuel source. So yes, so leaving the hospital after 10 days of a really dark time, just staring at white walls and eating that horrible chemical jelly in the hospital and having a drip coming out of me, and seeing these big massive quads of a soccer player be whittled down to little toothpicks, that I was walking along the aisles of the hospital with this drip stand. But how can we have such a contrast in such a short amount of time? So anyway, leaving that world and coming home in the car with the sun coming down onto my chest and looking at those white fluffy clouds again, and having the wind go past my face, with my head out the window like a dog with its tongue out, just enjoying life again. And I do get poetic like you. I really felt that. I felt that essence, and it was like life was smiling at me again, and I was then smiling through my soul, mirroring that. And I said, so yes, so I've got a second chance to live. What am I going to do with it? And it was then that I had the massive epiphany to start A to Z Health, because I realized that if an elite athlete can almost die of a burst appendix, imagine what the day-to-day society is going through who don't have this history in sport. So I
Mm,
started closely at the digestive system. Then I went into psychology and philosophy and spirituality. And I've arrived at this: if A to Z is true, Adam Zaks, my initials, if the A to Z, the alphabet of health, if it's to be holistic, then I'm going to need to go through every single thing that's ever been felt and manifested by the human body, and understanding its soul, and having this bookend with science. And so having this creativity, the flow state of just being fun with words and painting and music and photography and video and whatever it is, being in this flow, and the other side being more of a scientific basis, and bringing that together and
mm,
being poetic with that. And so that some of my writing has a bit of science, and some of my writing has a bit of the flavor of food, and
mm,
some of it has a little bit of sex and orgasmic expression in a moment in time, freeze frame, dripping delicious, taste sublime. You know, it's this flow of the energy of what's coming from me. And I really resonate with Wayne Dyer on that, when he says it really does come through you when
mm,
you're properly connected to the work of being a fully integrated human being,
mm,
and then showing it to others, and showing that there's this abundant love of feeling great, and that this is available to the rest of the world. It's so unfortunate that sometimes I'm misunderstood and called an idealist within this, because all I want to do is then to say to that person, but I want you to feel this as well. I want all of us to feel this as well. I don't see color. I don't see race. I don't see nationality. I see life,
mm.
raw energy. And if we understand this, then we're not going to get lost in the bullshit.
The bollocks. You talk about integrated, a full integrated being, or integrate. Like what in particular are we integrating, and what do you feel has been integrated with yourself, on your journey, and yeah, in terms of what are the specifics that we're integrating? Because I know that a lot of people may be wearing different hats or identities. Yet they're the mum, they're the student, they're the teacher, they're the sister, they're the, you know, at different times they're wearing different hats. They might be the employee, or they might be the entrepreneur, or you know what I mean? There's all these different hats that they're wearing, or that we're wearing. I'm not separating them and us. It's like what we're all wearing. And, you know, I guess, is it those parts we're integrating, or is it like, yeah, what specifically are you talking about when you're talking about being integrated?
Yeah. For me, I don't see it so much as a wearing different hats, because I believe, and I at least attempt to not be that, to be the same whether I'm at home or out or talking with a brother or whatever it is. That it's not the name Adam Zaks, but what this is to be true with all interactions. And
So when you say this, just for the listeners who can't see you, just describe.
This, I pointed to my chest, and in the meat suit covering the soul kind of line of thinking. The I am, as Muji would say, and this I am, this perceiving of a thing. There's something perceiving the thoughts. There's something perceiving the meat suit. There's something perceiving what someone said to you. And so there is a inner brilliant intelligence of knowingness, rather than a mind saying, I'm intellectually processing this. That there is a flow state within that soulfulness, which I think is beautiful. But back to the integration of that, I often use an analogy that we can create a snowball of health or a snowball of sickness. Really is up to you what snowflakes you're adding to that snowball that is gaining momentum as it's rolling down the hill. And so we can start with a very negative thought, like, you know, the way we start our mornings, believing that you're low energy, believing that that you're heartbroken, believing that something is true when it might not actually be, because you're not actually properly contemplating that feeling.
I'm imagining those snowflakes as thoughts, essentially, the thoughts that we entertain and that we give time and energy.
Yeah, but and believing those snowflakes to be true or not. I think the skill is in if you're adding. Let's not. I mean, positivity is a very sort of. It's kind of like a overused word, but in the real essence of what is positive, from a point of view of it making your life better, if you can believe those elements to be true, it might even be a little bit of a game of telling yourself some bullshit initially, in order to, that sort of old school fake it till you make it stuff. For some people that works, and it doesn't necessarily matter how you get there. I would put to someone that finding the real truth behind even those initial steps would be better than just believing bullshit blindly. But if it is positive thoughts, and initially you're thinking it, I don't really fully believe this. I mean, that's the power of affirmation. You can go from someone who's broke to, if you've got an affirmation around money, that is the kind of thought of everything I touch turns to gold kind of line of thinking. But you don't initially believe that. You're like, but I'm broke. I'm broke. I'm broke. I'm broke. I'm broke. Every day you're saying I'm broke. And the universe says, okay, cool. Have broke. Have broke. Have broke. It's just giving you the mirrored effect of what you're saying to be true.
And so in the integration, I guess it's actually something, I can't remember where I read it, maybe something to do with the heart math or the heart code. It might have been a book that I read. And they were talking about, when asked, I don't know how many people, we'll say 1,000 people, were asked, where are you? Like they say, where are you? Where do you sit? And most people point here, like they point to the chest. Very rarely people will point to the mind. Oh, I'm here. They'll point, you know, where do you sit? And it's often point to the chest. So
and chest and gut.
Yeah, like this kind of area. I'm pointing to my torso, and oftentimes to the heart, to right in the middle of the chest. And the power of the, you know, even the electric current that runs in the heart compared to the brain is a lot more. It's a lot more powerful. And I guess the integration pieces is, I was talking about this to somebody else. I think it was a friend of mine, Sabina, that a lot of people are just walking around as heads, just like walking around as brains and forgetting there's a body underneath this brain that's happening. So oftentimes we were talking about the chemicals that get released, and the wants and the reaching for the clinging towards the aversion. I want to stay away from that stuff. And it's like all of these stories and the thoughts in the head, and forgetting that there's an actual body underneath the neck. So it's like literally integrating head and body, or head and heart. And then there's that other piece that, whether you call it a soul or the thing that animates us, you can see that when someone's alive and when someone's dead, there's some difference there, right? So it's integrating those parts. Is that more the integration that we're talking about here?
Yeah, for sure. And practicing being in that state. It is a practice. Like anything, like yoga is a practice, like my soccer was a practice, like speaking is a practice. Being better at poetry was a practice. I look back at the way I wrote when I was a teenager in school, and that's when it really started. I was around 16 or 17. I started writing love poetry. Girls that I was into.
Of course.
Yeah. And then that kind of led into a philosophical kind of life poetry, which is where I'm at now, which is kind of like, there's just the person to person love, and then realizing, there's all this other love that is the universal love, and being poetic about that, which I find particularly fun.
It's super fun. And I guess carrying on the A to Z, it's like, for those I've asked you, what is A to Z health? And I still imagine there's people thinking, I still don't know what is A to Z.
Yeah. So what is A to Z health? Conceptually, there's three areas. There's the physical, there's the nutritional, and then there's the philosophical health. And within the philosophical health, we have psychology, philosophy, spirituality, and all those other elements. There is really two models that I've created within something called an A to Z health circle. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but that's a yin yang. So I wear the yin yang. It's the methodology, or the ideology or philosophy and legacy that I believe in, not necessarily just coming from China, but I know it is a Chinese philosophy, but I really think this to be true for life itself, is that there is this balance, and there's this duality between extremes, and there's a coming together in the middle of understanding it all. And so within this yin yang, it's called the A to Z health circle. And so I know you've got listeners, and I know you've got people watching. So with the A to Z health circle, at the top, we have bacteria. We then, to the right of the circle, we have DNA. Underneath that, at the bottom, like at your 6 o'clock of the clock, we have thoughts. And then we have, to the left, the 9 o'clock, to the left of the circle, we have emotions. And so that thoughts and emotions is the enteric nervous system. So thoughts and emotions and thoughts, and this sort of sets up a state of being. And this state of being affects our DNA, affects our bacteria. And the way our bacteria expresses itself then has an effect on our DNA. And if you remove any part of that circle, ultimate health can't be obtained. So that's the physical A to Z health circle. And so the three areas of A to Z health is physical, nutritional, and philosophical health. And then we have, for humanity, we have the spiritual realm of the A to Z health circle. Okay, and in the spiritual realm, this is docked with the physical realm. In the spiritual realm, we have perceivers at the top. So anyone that is aware of self. So perceivers, and some animals can do this too. Perceivers, so the knowingness that we are a God. This is removed from religion, just the knowingness of this godship, this magicness. And then we have the after the perceiving, we've got this kind of we've got these, let's just say, all the universes could be called the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
So we call it the multiverse. So we got the perceivers within the multiverse. So this is kind of the knowledge of the infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's okay if we're not following.
I'm following on perfectly.
I can just keep explaining. So we've got this multiverse, and then at the bottom, in the bottom at the 6 o'clock again, we've then got the tapestry. And so if one was to take something like DMT, which is something that occurs naturally in nature, it occurs in the deepness of the trunk of a tree. So these plant molecules, these plant energies, can then come and dock with our receptors in our body like a lock and key. And when we experience this, we can see the tapestry of life, which is the structure of the multiverse. So we've got the perceivers, we've got the structure of the multiverse, and then we've got the tapestry, which is seeing the structure of the multiverse. We then have energies to the left side of the circle. And so energies would be, if you can remember back to when I talk about the physical part of the circle, we had the emotions in that same place. So this is going further than just emotion. This is energy understanding within the spiritual form. It could be, because this is, then we get caught in language, because language can be poetic, but it can also be sloppy if we're not really resonating with the true meaning of it. So energies could be, for you, it's up to the individual, whoever's listening. It could be things like love. It could be things like intuition. It could be things that you would otherwise consider a sixth sense, something that is beyond the physical senses.
Yeah, I'd imagine it to be, when you talk about it, it feels like intentions, or like, the ineffable or the untouchable, the thing we cannot physically put your hands on.
Yeah. And so if we can master both realms, that is then the end of the journey of A to Z health. But it's interesting because a person never stops working on these things until they die. And I know, as an old man, when I finally do go, I will be thinking to myself, looking back on all of this, that it is impossible to ever know everything that there is to know about everything. And I feel that there must be some sort of purpose to live in the physical state. Like the soul has created our physical bodies in order to experience something, so that when it goes back into the realms of the only spiritual world where the physical dies, that it takes these lessons with it to then help the universe to evolve further. That this spiritual state must be there for a reason.
For the upgrade. Download for the upgrade.
Yeah, the upgrading of the operating system. It's the 1.2 after the 1.1. Yeah.
Seems like it's going on, and I think Musk, is talking about everything's just a simulation, and he's like, it's interesting. Then you have DMT experiences, and you're like, fuck, this is pretty simulation like. So.
And it's really interesting. I've been viewing a lot of stuff that's coming through. Like we want to have robots cook our food, for instance, and I think that's ridiculous. No love goes through something that is not of nature. So how could you possibly then get the health out of the food if it's not being connected with an energy?
Maybe made with love, like maybe the robots were made with love. That was the intention,
Love, but how does the robot continue the energy of love?
This is the $1 million question. This is the Ridley Scott question, isn't it?
Yeah. Great Scott. Yeah. Some sort of old 1980s car and go on some hoverboards across a little lake to get away from the bad guy.
It's an interesting time we're living in. It's very, very, I'm super grateful. Like we're at the an interesting, a very fascinating, curious time. Like, you know, in the next 20 to 40 years, what we're going to be seeing technologically, it's pretty exciting. I would say it's definitely exciting me. Definitely got me curious as well. You know, like the fact that we can we can talk in real time, however many kilometers we are away, and like this
All
stuff
right.
this stuff blows my mind.
Yeah, you're just in the next house next door, right?
Pretty much, like, you know, I'm speaking to you probably faster than than if I was next door. I'd probably have to leave the house, go
Yeah.
next door, relay the message,
Mm.
and then that however many thousands of people can just tune in. It's yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah, man. No, you're having an effect, man. I see people really docking with your energy and your vibe. I see that you have a lot of people that that really hang off what you say. It's really cool.
It's an interesting thing. It's sharing, and yeah, it's like, because I've never been, or I don't know if I've ever been. I'm like, somebody was talking to me just early, just actually passed from the live I was just talking about earlier, the live meditation, the live guided meditation, and somebody connected and said like I shared a bit about my story about what, you know, where I'd come from, and you know what my life was like in the early days, and how I've gotten to here, and I share that, like, and it's kind of like vulnerably sharing, or like showing some of myself, and being like, a lot of people have responded like, that's really courageous for you to share your story, and brave, and it's not something that I'd thought to do or think to do. Is like, oh, I want to share my story. I don't, because that's all I know. It's all I know is that that's my story. So I'm not like, well, that's just all I know. It's not anything special, or I don't feel like it's great or extraordinary, or, you know, like, and for someone, I think the word was proud. They said, you must be proud. And I said, not really.
Think
Like, you
thoughts.
know, you know, I'm like, well, it's not quite like, I'm not feeling prideful about where I've been or where I'm at now. It's like, I do enjoy being present. I do enjoy reaping the benefits of my best efforts. You know, I do enjoy presence. I do enjoy achievement, and winning, and all of this stuff. But I actually, yeah, pride is not something that I would equate, you know, like I wouldn't put pride there in terms of just living life and being where I'm at. But it has illustrated to me the importance, like the feedback that I've received has illustrated to me the importance of sharing more of myself, and like, you know, more, I guess it's like this humility or something. Like, I'm like, I don't talk about that stuff because I'm like, well, it's nothing special. But maybe it is. Maybe I have to go, actually, it is quite special, because, you know, not
Yeah.
everyone can pick themselves up and be the self-made kind of person, you know. Not everyone decides to say, hey, fuck, my circumstances aren't going to dictate what I am, or, you know, what I create in life. And maybe that is a special thing.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely resonate with what you just said, because I remember months ago I wrote a post about how I was feeling on Facebook, and I got a bit essay with it. You know, I got a bit
Hold on, essay. What you saying, essay?
you I did that Spanish format and talking about I'm more sort of saying, like, you know, you write this long thing and someone says, oh geez, thanks for the essay.
Yeah, I'm
But
just saying,
yeah,
bit of
I
wordplay for you.
wrote something with vulnerability. Apparently it was vulnerability,
Mm,
but I didn't feel vulnerable when I was writing it. I was
yeah,
just
it's
like, oh,
normal. It's normal.
this is worth sharing. I feel that this would upgrade people's operating system, help them to get to 1.2, you know. And I had some comments saying, thank you so much for the vulnerability. But wow, the vulnerability? Oh, hadn't even thought about it. Okay, cool.
It's an interesting thing. But it is powerful. I think Brene Brown talks a lot about vulnerability and being in a space of that you don't know what. It's like an exposed kind of feeling, like vulnerable. It's like, oh shit, it's dangerous. You know, I'm imagining like a turtle that's just been born on the shore, and You know, it's like the eagle could come swoop, or the seagull could come swoop. It's like vulnerable. It's fucking scary as shit. And the power in that, in purposefully placing ourselves in situations of vulnerability. And I guess in this day and age, just, you know, with the social media, a lot of people putting putting forth an image of like just the perfection, or, you know, like especially with the masculinity femininity pieces of guys are supposed to be tough and not show softness or weakness or tears, or, you know, if you hurt your appendix, like you said, you've got this pain threshold that is like, oh, like, I'll just suck it up. And, you know, it's like, this is what we've been trained to do. So I guess going, fuck, this hurts, or this, you know, I'm in pain, or, you know, saying I'm not okay, you know, all of these kind of things, you know, I'm not doing okay mentally, is a powerful piece. And that's what I'm learning, I guess, is to really, I guess, be less humble in a way. It's like, it's almost like less humble about that, be like, well, actually this is powerful stuff. So there's a
Yeah,
need, or a
your chest.
duty to
Yeah,
actually to embody it.
there's it's not an ego pride, it's a deep pride. It's like a chest high and saying, yeah, like I'm of nature, and fuck yeah, let's go do this. And I thought about that turtle, you know, scurrying to the water,
Mm,
and the bird swooping down on it, it's embedded in its DNA, embedded in its nature. It doesn't think I have to go and scurry through the sand, which is like going over all these bits of sand, this tiny little body, like trying to get through to get to the water. It doesn't think I got to go do that. It just goes, let's fucking go. It just goes, right?
and it's
It's
like,
not checking to read its likes on an Instagram post. It's just going for it. Like, get out the fucking way. And it's just been born. It hasn't been taught by a Les Brown talk to be kind of like this, to go for it, you know. Let's, you know, look, with a big deep voice, and like, you know, we got to get pumped up every morning, watch motivational videos. It's embedded in its DNA. Let's go.
mm,
Let's do this.
that's
And
flow, fam. That's less flow, fam. That's exactly that.
if I get eaten on the way, I get eaten on the way. But don't we all?
I'm reminded of have you seen the snakes and the lizard? The lizard on the archipelago, and all the snakes are trying to get these lizards. And I think might be Morgan Freeman or Attenborough, one of these guys. And this motherfucker's running so fast, and the snakes almost get him. They like just catch him, and it's like, this is like high stakes, life or death stuff. And it's like, uh, yeah, it feels like that can be the case. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and a friend of mine, Tamwa, longtime friend of mine, one of the most powerful healers in the world that I know, absolutely incredible human. And we were discussing like when we're spending time and how we're spending time and energy, and that as we get older, and we, you know, every moment that we live, every day that we live, we get one step closer to death. And, you know, life gets shorter the more you're alive. And we were discussing how we don't really have time to just hang out anymore. There's no, it's like, oh, it's like, where do you hang out? Like, oh, I don't do hanging out. I haven't done hanging out for a long time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time to hang out. If we're hanging out, we're discussing ideas. We're getting to know one another. We're creating value. We're, you know, we're doing stuff that is, and we're doing stuff that is hopefully contributing to the upgrading of the operating system, whether it's
Yeah.
within ourselves or towards the actual whole system. And in that, it's like, yeah, that piece of like the turtle scurrying to the shore in danger and vulnerability, and also the piece on, you know, the lizard went that high stakes when you got the music, got the whole orchestra, ten ten ten. It's like a high intensity, but it's also like you said, it's instinctual. It's like that it's no thinking. That's total flow zone, as well as it's high pressure, and there's a bunch of cortisol, a bunch of adrenaline, a bunch of anandamide running through the body, which creates flow states. It's a beautiful presence. And I was just, what's coming through now as I'm talking is the importance of the urgency piece in terms of like, actually time is running out. We're here for a blink of an eye. We don't have time to waste time, killing time. You know, people talk about, oh, I'm just killing time. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just watching Netflix. Or I'm like, how the fuck you got time for that shit? You know, like if we're here and we're present, you know, I guess we got all the time in the world when we're present, right? And yeah, that piece is coming through in terms of like, okay, this vulnerability, this stepping into the now so that you can open up to whatever wants to come through. You mentioned the Wayne Dyer piece about what wants to come through, and the urgency to actually really get present and to embody and integrate these pieces of vulnerability, of stepping into your power, of owning whatever it is that you're into, finding what is important to you, finding your values, all of these pieces, which I believe are super important. And, you know, in terms of me, I don't know what it is like for you, but for me, I'm like the facilitation, me facilitating, magicking, holding space for the realization of potential. That feels like why I'm here. So like the urgency to if you don't know why it is that you're here, to really get clear on that. I feel that there's an urgency in that. You know, and that, yeah, I guess I'd love to hear your take on like urgency and time and, you know, all these pieces that are dropping in right now.
Definitely. Well, I mirrored what you say, what you've just said. It was beautiful. Thank you. And I really resonate with what you said about the sperm being that one survivor, that one champion, that one, just like he was just this Godzilla, this warrior that just got through and said, you know, get the F out of here. I am getting to that egg, you know, being that. And so we're all,
It's okay. You can curse. This is every episode I've ever done has got explicit next to it, so it's fine.
what are you talking about? And so it got there. It's already a born champion, right? And I really relate to superheroes with this, because what's the story behind superheroes? We've got Batman, who overcame his fear of bats, so that he could live through his fulfillment and love to make a better world, right? And what do we got on polar opposite ends of each other? We got fear and we got love. You know, the urgency is staying in that love, that love place. I mean, if you're in that place, it's just natural urgency. What happened with Iron Man? You know, he almost got killed by an explosion. He had some amazing technological surgeon hook his heart up to some sort of radioactive device, and that keeps the metal away from his heart so he doesn't die. And but then with his smarts, with his brain, he connected his heart and his brain, and he used that to make the world a better place. And then what happened with Doctor Strange? He had a massive car accident and he shattered his hands, which is the actual things that he was helping the world with. But learning through his injury, he then discovered how to better use his hands by reconnecting with his soul, which he wasn't doing in the past. He was coming from an ego place using his hands, and his hands were really great, but he hadn't connected to that soulfulness, and he hadn't connected his heart to what was true. And so, and I think, and I see this in my clients, I see it in you, I see it in me, that we are superheroes, but there's just people that have realized it, and there's people that are transitioning into realizing it. They were already born that, because, you know, you look at that turtle scurrying to the water, and the analogies are great. So we have that in us. We have happiness imprinted into our DNA. We already have a good bacteria system. And if we don't, we've got that A to Z health circle there to then get us back into a flow state of health. And we're in that flow state of health, we can then look at the spiritual and get into a flow state of spiritual, put the two together, and we've got ultimate health. And even if you get to a place where you do feel quite enlightened, when you do feel quite articulate with this stuff, that we're still having this conversation and we still believe that we've got things to learn. And this is probably why, subconsciously, why we're having the conversation. It's not just so that people can feel inspired by what we're saying. We do have an ego, and we do wish to be carrying on a message from a positive point of view in this physical state, wanting to inspire others. But while we're speaking, we're listening to our words and we're going, yeah, this is great. I want more of this. And I really do. We inspire ourselves with that. We get fulfillment ourselves with that. And I really, it's really cool because there's all these connections, because you interviewed DeMartini recently.
Mm.
I would consider him a friend, although someone that I haven't spoken to for long periods of time. I've gone to his talks and I've spoken to him after the talks and felt a lot of alignment. So it's really cool because, he's asked, what do you do to be on a vacation? What do you do to let off steam, sort of thing? He says, like, I don't live in that world. I party with the great minds of the world. And so I had said to you, let's do a chat together. Let's do more stuff together, because I do want to party with the great minds of the world. I see you as a great influence, and I see DeMartini, Wayne Dyer, Alan Watts, Muji. I see a lot of great people that want to help to make the world shine, and I want to help to make the world shine. And we're all in it together.
What does that for you? Where does that want come from?
That they can get there. It's just that they need to realize it.
So for you, where does that want come from? Because, like, I imagine a lot of people might have a want, or, they want that, but they don't allow themselves to, or there's I don't know what, if there's a belief, or there's like, oh, who am I to, or, it's someone else is going to do it. I know for me, when I stepped out of Vipassana for the first time in 2008, some 10 years ago, that I was like, the whole world needs to do this. Like, the whole world needs to meditate. This is what I said, because I was practicing qigong, and it's kind of different. It was like more like internal martial art, very kind of selfish almost. It's like self-cultivation, and the Vipassana was very like that too. However, being in a group of people and seeing everyone shining and changing and shifting, I was like, wow, this is how we can change a group of people. And I said often afterwards, I said, everyone needs to do this. And I was saying it in like with no kind of intention to do anything about it. It's like, oh, everyone needs to do this. But a few years later, I'm teaching meditation, I'm teaching qigong, I'm doing something about it. So the question there is, I guess for you, where does the want to do that come from? Not just to actually the want, but then actually the follow through with the action.
Yeah, it's huge. And I go back to that burst appendix and being given that second chance, and literally wanting to shake people awake, because it shouldn't take a near death to have this. Although I do believe that certain catalysts have.
It often does, though, doesn't it?
Yes, certain catalysts have woken up countless people with very inspirational stories. And it is really cool, but it shouldn't necessarily take that. And that's why I'm so passionate about, well, you could fall off a cliff, you could get a burst appendix, you could shatter your leg like Dan Millman in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, for him to realize that it's not just being a gymnast which is going to serve me, but what he heard from Socrates in the story was, see, you practice gym, Dan, and I practice life. And it's that practicing life where the real nugget of magic comes from, is being always feeling magic. As I said to you at the start, I've stopped saying good and bad when someone asks me, how are you? If I'm feeling slightly less than good, I say complex. And if I'm feeling slightly better than good, I say magic. And I do often get asked also, how can you be just as articulate in the middle of the night at 3 or 4 in the morning as you are in the middle of the day, as you are in the afternoon and early in the morning? And like, why for you can you do it any day of the week at any time? It's because I practice life. I don't practice it being like, what is it today? Oh, a Thursday. We started talking at 9:30. I only think in those realms to be available for us to be able to have the conversation, because then time becomes a concept.
Mm.
Otherwise, time is relative. And so what is it relative to? Well, for me, it's relative to my values. And if I don't have a value around articulating myself well, sharing my heart, sharing my message, sharing my vision, being in your flow state that you love talking about, if I'm not in that, then I'm decaying, I'm dying, I'm dead, I'm wasting away, I'm passing time, as you said. I'm watching Netflix. I'm Netflix and chilling. And that is it's a dangerous place to be in. Oh, but Adam, you've got to have balance to life. What about what about some Mackie D's in front of a chick flick? No, I just don't, like DeMartini says. I don't live in that world.
Mm.
Don't live in that world. It's not for me.
There's some no's. There's just some things that are hell no. There's some things that are hell no.
And that.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Non-negotiables. Do you have like non-negotiables? Are there things
Yeah.
that
And
you
now
don't do?
Anthony Robbins, aren't we? So yeah, definitely. I don't compromise on this. Someone wants to have a mediocre conversation, I either shake them out of it or I leave.
Hmm.
I'm very abrupt with that, and I'm considered a little bit blunt, and probably the reason why I'm less popular than maybe some other coaches or gurus out there is because sometimes I need to metaphorically slap you across the face to wake you up. And I said, conversation is nutrition and words digest over time. And the way I wrote it was time, THYME, as in time the herb, because I love this connection between food and language and philosophy.
When's the time? When is the time to get divine? Is it the now or 10 to 5? And
Yeah.
then we blend the spice of life with N, diethylamide and tryptamines, delight in Zen, then end the fight. It's when's the time?
Yeah, your origins, I see you were born in Jamaica, Muji born in Jamaica. There's an alignment there, and not that that matters. But Muji talks about the flavoring of life and how it flavors your life. I love these cooking references because it's beautiful.
It's delicious.
How does
Delicious.
it flavor your life? How does it flavor it? And yeah, words in nutrition and words digest over time. And with this bluntness that I might throw at someone, if words are nutrition, if conversation is nutrition, for your soul, and words digest over time, it's kind of like this marination process, right? It's not going to be flavorsome straight away. If you're marinating a stir fry, it's going to be flavorsome at the right time for it to be flavorsome. And when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But the teacher doesn't necessarily appear as a person. The teacher may appear as words that was said years ago, and then out of nowhere, oh my God, I get it now. That the thing that person said in the street to me 5 years ago, oh shit, I get it now. Oh my God.
I wish I had a penny drop sound right now. I wish I had a sample of a penny just dropping like ching, 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 ching.
It's just amazing. There's this, it literally digests over time, words and concepts and philosophy. And
Do you spend much time consuming much, or like you talk about these people, the DeMartinis, the Dyers, the Muji? Do you spend much time consuming the words and the content of others, or do you like, how do you balance that? Do you create much of your own and put much of your own stuff out there? Like what kind of a split do you have in terms of what you ingest and what you create and cook yourself?
what I cook. Yeah, I'm a chef for sure. Word chef. Yeah, what sort of breakdown? I would say that it is more. It is probably more my own speaking from within and writing words and recording audio based on that. But it's pretty impossible for someone that wants to stay in an inspired state to be not influenced by other great people who are also in a very fulfilled, inspired state. It is impossible for both you and I to leave this conversation and not be influenced by each other.
Mm.
And so I daily read, I daily listen to audio, I daily put in the good stuff so the good stuff can come out. And yeah, good stuff would still come out without it, but you need to keep yourself in that state. You know, there's an old Chinese proverb that goes, after 3 days without reading, talk becomes flavorless. And so, but I'm not reading, you know, so, and then Adam, what do you read? And then that's important too. I'm not reading the newspaper.
You're reading the new idea.
Yeah, Woman's Weekly. Yeah, no, I ain't got time for that. I just got time for McDonald's, Netflix, and chill. I ain't got time for that. What I got time for, though, what I've got a lot of time for, is kicking back with some ancient philosophy, with a bit of
a bit of Hafiz, a bit of Watts,
Tao Te Ching,
yeah.
Zen, Japanese philosophy. People that are currently in the modern framework doing stuff. You know, I loving Jay Shetty at the moment, who started as a monk and then realized through his masters told him, you'd be better off bringing this monkness into a society, into a modern framework, and then helping it, and because you're good with words, let it help the masses. So he realized that it wasn't being a monk that is what he needed to do. Being the monk was his training. Like an injury and a burst appendix is your training, your school, if you like. And so his school was being a monk. And so then after being this monk, he then uses this wisdom, and he's a young guy. Like, I think he's younger than us. I think he's in his late 20s still. He's one of the most influential people in the world at the moment, because he's spitting out this, you know, poetic philosophy that you and I love to do also. And he's making videos about it. And I think, you know, he's very aligned with Prince A, you know, I think him and Prince A are mates. But I think they're mates through the internet world, you know, that you and I feel that they're tagging each other. These big pop shots, Prince A and Jay Shetty, if you look at them, they're tagging each other at the moment. And so the full collective consciousness of let's make the world a better place. And Jay Shetty's spitting out this awesome stuff about relationships, about business, about, you know, being in your true state, about, you know, sometimes he's got this awesome video, before you break up, watch this. And you and I are producing content, and we're all doing it. And I encourage other people to do it. Being an encourager. I'm loving Infinite Waters at the moment, because he's encouraging people.
This is Ralph.
Ralph Smart, yeah.
Legend.
Like,
shout outs to Ralph.
Yeah, shout out to Ralph. Like, I'm not just doing it so that you can be inspired by just me doing it. I'm doing it so that you can be inspired within yourself to also do it. Right.
I loving all the folk, and yeah, ingesting and digesting. That's something I find the balancing of the masculine feminine piece, like having those goals, like at the start of the year or whenever it might be, like at the birthday, like those significant pointers in the timescape, they are helpful. You know, like if I don't have those, I can easily just like forget. You know, it's like, oh, it's just I'll just do the things that are easiest, or the path of least resistance. Having those, you know, I step in, I can just embrace. Oh, I'm just going to flow. You know, people talk about a lot of people talk. I work with a lot of creatives. You know, I work with creative people, entrepreneurs who love their freedom. They don't want to have structure. You know, I'm like, well, discipline is freedom. You know, when we're solid in our discipline, then, and when we're solid in our discipline, especially of practicing presence and awareness, then we can, you know, like bend time, and that urgency is, well, it's just filled up with doing what you love, and we're opened up to do what wants to come through. Because if you don't, then that mind chatter, that noise that you mentioned earlier, that becomes the ruler of your life, and you don't become a master of your life, but you get dragged around by life. So having the discipline to actually structure, you know, the time to get clear on what it is you want, get the clarity, or ask yourself, what do I want? I think this is one of the most powerful questions. What do I want? What do I desire? Not enough people ask, or they look outside and get told what they want by advertising, by society, by all of the conditionings, rather than go, hang on a sec, what do I want? Hang on a sec. There's something going on here. What
You
would
really?
I like?
Are you sure?
So,
You know that, right?
you know you're not allowed that, right? Then the dogma comes in, and it's all crazy. But I feel that discipline, and the more I've aligned with that discipline myself, this was one of my weakest points when, you know, I was super undisciplined. Um, the reason why, because I didn't know what my values were. I didn't know who I was or what I wanted. And if you don't know, then easily, you know, you can start living injected values, and you know, the focusing on areas which you don't actually aren't that important to you. And discipline comes naturally when you love the thing, right? If you're aligned with the thing that you love, you don't need discipline, you just do the thing. And the piece
Yeah.
that's been coming through strongly for me is that mindfulness is purpose. So the more mindfully we live, the more, and it's an interesting word, mindfulness. Me and my mate Benny were talking, should be called mind emptiness, really. It's not mindful.
Yeah, good.
So, but when we're present and aware, that allows us to then ask ourselves what we want, and that having a strong purpose in life isn't, I know what my purpose is, I know exactly what it looks like, and I know why I'm here on earth. It's not necessarily that. It's just knowing, it's being in touch with the present moment, so that whatever you're doing in the moment, you're doing it purposefully. You know why you're doing what you're doing in the moment, because you are so present. If you're not present, you can't be purposeful at all, because you're out there, your mind's distracted, you're not in the moment, you're anxious about the future, worried about the past. You know, like, if you're here now, then every action, every word, every syllable, every thought is going to be purposeful. It's going to have a purpose, right? So that's the piece that's been coming through strongly. I guess for you, without the appendix being burst, and, you know, you have these catalyst moments, how do you ensure that you're moment to moment living purposefully?
Ah, yes. Well, it's through that practice of being in the moment, as you were saying. Through that practice, you become better at being connected to subtleties within the body and within the soul, the mind, the soul mind, and the body mind. There is subtleties, being able to heal from within through this awareness. There's a certain incorrect feeling in one of your organs, and you connect with that and go, no, it's cool, and we replace it with a bit of calming GABA, and we bring the healing qualities back in. And so then we're decreasing the time that we're not feeling so good through these practices. How do you be reminded of that? It's through the repetitive practice of being that itself. It kind of like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So that practice there, is that like a body scan? Is that I'm putting my attention in the body and looking for, like, what does that actually, the reason I'm asking is for somebody listening, how can they apply this exact what you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's through many avenues. I mean, meditation is something that, when you left a particular practice and you were saying, oh, everyone should do this, there was so much knowingness to that, and there's so much finality to that, you didn't even know why. And that's because it was that powerful that it didn't need a why behind it. And so the meditation is a big thing. You're practicing this in order to know how the body is meant to feel. And if the body's not feeling that magic, it's then the practice that you've done beforehand. You've created a how to feel good for Adam Zaks, the how to feel good for you. There's the how to that you've created a blueprint for yourself over time through practice, through practicing all these different things. And so then no, that pain in the right side of my lower back, that's not meant to be there. Retracing the steps. How do we get that? We were sitting in the same position for too long in an interview. Okay, cool. What stretch can I do to alleviate that? And am I breathing or am I holding my breath? And how much water have I had today? And what sort of sleep quality have I had lately? Have I been staring at my phone too late at night, which is disturbing my melatonin levels? And have I been meditating every day, or have I been distracted by stupid Facebook posts? And have I been Netflixing and chilling too much and not focusing within and focusing on the things that really matter, that you've otherwise stated to yourself in the past as being things that matter to you? If you're getting distracted by that, maybe also questioning how important those things literally are to you. Is it your highest values, or is it just something that the external world told you that it's your value? And so, yeah, there is probably a lot of mind stuff that does need to happen. That's when we use our mind, we'll say in inverted commas, positively, because again, we're allowing that to better our lives. Sometimes the mind is needed. There is a mind of what things do I need to do in order to get into a flow state. But then we leave the mind alone, because then we can start getting brain chatter, and then we go back into the body. But the mind is needed sometimes. And Morgan Freeman, I just noticed you opening your jaw. Morgan Freeman was asked, how do you get such a deep voice? And he says the key behind that is because it stretches the vocal cords and relaxes it.
Yeah, I was just talking to Carl Laz yesterday, I think it was, and he was mentioning a book, Dan Brule, called Just Breathe. Yeah. And Dan talks about breathing and some of the most important types of breathing, and he talks of sighing. When sigh, people they associate, you're not interested, or they think they put a story to it. They're like sighing. He says to double up on nature. So if you sigh once, sigh 2 more times. Like when you see a sigh, it's like this big, and that breath of just relaxing is just like something that happens naturally. And yawning is another one. If you yawn once, you probably see me double up on it. It's fresh in the mind, and it activates parts of the throat and parts of the body that don't get released anytime. Like they say, not even in like orgasm and like these parts of the throat, and even when singing, like there's parts that don't get activated. So doubling up on nature. So Morgan's onto something there for sure.
Yeah, well, I can't compete with the deepness of your voice, and really great friend of mine who has the West Indian genes also. He is a very very amazing deep voice, and can do a lot of great voices with this deep voice.
I want to hear these voices. I want to get him on the show just to do some voices.
It's a beautiful thing. He's not much into video and social media and stuff. He looks at it himself, but he's kind of this quiet philosopher. He's kind of like we can get him.
We can do audio only. Tell him we'll do audio only one.
The opposite end of what I do, although it's the same expression. We're such good friends because we can have this really close conversation, end-to-end conversation that doesn't end. that the only thing that would end it is like, oh, okay, cool, it's time for bed or whatever, like, but it's like, there is no time for bed if I'm inspired, because I don't need food, I don't need sleep, I don't need anything when I'm in my highest value. It's sort of like, well, how do you party, Adam? And again, really much resonate with DeMartini on that. I party with conversation.
Mm.
That is my partying. I don't go to clubs. I don't drink alcohol. And the drugs, in inverted commas, I do that a lot. The people that are just listening, I'm using my fingers, that inverted commas thing. The drugs that I do use would be of a psychedelic nature, and I consider them to be supplements, because what's a supplement? It's something that aids you, and it aids the mind, it aids the soul, it aids the body to manifest more, to be more open, to use more of the tools that nature gave us.
Mm. A lot of them are just the exogenous versions of the endogenous compounds that exist within us as well. So it's
a drug to me. But then there are things that I would consider to be this kind of like Western world horribleness that are drugs that don't even need to be named. I'm sure everyone can know what that is. And I think, I believe and I know to be true that alcohol is the worst. It's the top of the bunch. It's the worst thing you can put in your body. And people are doing shots in clubs and listening to music that doesn't really mean anything. And talking to people that don't have their best interests at heart. And so if you're going to have a conversation with someone, I could tell with you had to wait for the right moment to have this conversation with me. You had things going on in your life, and that's cool, because that meant to me, what that said to me is that it has to be meaningful. If it's not the right time, this is time being relative. If it's not the right time to be in this, then it's not nourishing. It's nourishing now because the time was right.
And it's something beyond even knowing as well. It's like a higher knowing that it's like at play. It's like, oh yeah, not just yet. The time's not just yet. And it's not like a conscious thing. It's just like this over there, just everything when the time is right. When the time is right, we got this.
Yeah, man.
And that's something that I've actually trusted in a lot, like throughout my life, is that intuitive faculty that is inside that guides everything everywhere I go. And it's actually surprising, because I didn't realize that travel was one of my highest values until retrospectively. I've been having a lot of retrospective kind of logic. I go, well, I must like travel because I do it heaps. It's like I look over my bank statement. I'm like, fuck, I've traveled a lot. Jesus Christ, I've been to a lot of places. Over the last 10 years, I've been to a new place every year. And it's just like, okay, it's way more of a value than I ever thought.
That's where money is beautiful, because it's like, it's an energy, because it's an expression of life, and you use it to flavor your life, right? So just how do you decide to flavor your life with money? It was cool how you said looking at your bank statement.
Yeah. It's 100%. So it's kind of cool having those reflective moments and reflecting on. And it's been really cool actually meditating with the kids, getting the kids sitting and they're amazing. Like, they're just such sponges, and they're so eager to, well, I often dangle a carrot for them. I'll be like, I'll let you do the thing if you give me 20 minutes of meditation. Give yourself 20 minutes of meditation. So, but it's also a beautiful thing just to watch them, how much calmer they are. They'll be crazy 1 minute. All right, let's come and sit down for 20 minutes. And then afterwards, they're just playing together like angels. It's just like beautifully, like after 1 minute going crazy, and then next minute really seeing the effects of it is a beautiful thing.
You're a good dad.
I always thought that I'd be like, fuck, I'd love if I was my dad, if I had that would be great. So it's being present. I think something somebody said to me, I think it was a friend of mine, Troy Haynes. Shout out to Troy Haynes. I definitely got to get Troy on the show. Actually, you'd love Troy. I should link you guys up. He said to me that children, and I sort of put this onto humans as well, but he said children spell love time. So it's like, spending high quality present time with children, but I believe this is for any human being. Any human is like anything really that can sentient being. If you spend time with it, that's how you spell love, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was a beautiful one. That's something that stuck with me. I'd actually keen to know if, with you, what are there some things that have just stuck with you? Like just some things that human beings have said to you, not necessarily in a book or anything, but people have spoken to you that you're like, oh, I just always remembered that.
The first thing that came to my head is knowledge speaks, wisdom listens.
Where'd you hear that one?
I think I must have read it in one of those old philosophical scriptures.
Knowledge speaks,
Wisdom
wisdom
listens.
listens. Always interesting, those ones with like the hierarchy, like what's is wisdom better? Is knowledge, what's wrong with knowledge? You know?
Right. So I think critical thinking is important. Yeah.
Talk to us about critical thinking. Can you define that and describe the process?
Okay. So critical thinking would be picking apart and deciphering for yourself what is really true and what is basically storytelling or fiction, because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of fiction.
What is superstitious?
Yeah, like I don't necessarily. I think I was a lot more blunt in the past about religion. I don't necessarily chastise people about them being particularly geared towards any one religion, but I would still say to them, in my evolving of being a little bit more diplomatic, I would still say to them, please, question what you're reading and what you hear when you're going to your church group or your synagogue or your
Or your
mosque,
mosque or your
or whatever it is that the establishment that you're in, because there's a hell of a lot of indoctrination in it. That you must believe, or else the devil will strike down upon thee, and this sort of nonsensical threatening. Where's the critical thinking? Really? Okay, come at me. Where are you, devil? Devil. We have the devil inside us, and we have God inside us, and we got all of the whatever poetry that you want. It doesn't matter. Why? Why? What does that mean? Critical thinking is, and do you read I don't read the newspaper, but does one read the newspaper and then questions, is that true? Or do they read the article, this just in, scientifically proven that da 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 da, and you go, oh wow, and you go tell all your friends, you see what I read in the newspaper? And they'll go, oh really? Oh, yeah, cool. Oh wow, yeah, and they all believe it too. And it was just fabricated story to begin with.
fake news.
Hey, yeah, it's news. Hey, what's news to me? What's news to me is whatever's happened now. That's news. Right now, this is news for me. This is my news. News is, I'm feeling this, man. That's news. News is not what happened in the Middle East yesterday. Someone got shot. I know someone got shot. I know someone got stabbed. I know someone got shot. I know someone fell off a cliff. I know someone committed suicide. You go to that stupid website, the birth and death clock, and you've got deaths happening this fast, and then you've got births happening slightly faster. And so there's this thing that there's more births than there is deaths, and so there's always someone dying, there's always someone getting born. And okay, cool, now I know this. Now I can get on with my life. Critical thinking. Like, why are you living through the media, living through your phone, living through this external entity when you can live through your truth? Your truth. And I pointed to my chest again.
Beautiful thing. So the critical, is it critiquing? Like, what's the critical part? Are you being a critic of what is coming in or what you're receiving?
Yeah, that's interesting in language, isn't it? Sometimes I'm seen as a critique, as a bit critical. it's sort of like sorry, not sorry, because I'm sorry if it hurts you, but it doesn't have to, because I'm just giving feedback to what I know to be true and to what I know to be nourishing, the words digesting over time.
Mm.
You know, the marination of me sort of flavoring something, so that why am I in the physical state? Well, I'm here to touch people's lives and to have an impact.
Mm.
So if I'm not speaking the truth, if I'm not speaking my truth, what am I doing? I'm living a non-purposeful life if I'm not doing that.
Mm. And I feel a common theme that's coming up is it, like a lot, just not just in our conversation here and this discussion, this little chat we're having, but in general, in a lot of the conversation that's happening at the moment, is this concept of self-responsibility and not shirking it, and not yeah, I guess this piece of like, it's like a raising, people talk about like a raising of the consciousness of the planet, and you know, people saying about like the awakening or wokeness of the level of people. And a lot of people talk about when I started my awakening, or, you know, I was living in the corporate world and then I had an awakening. and
Yeah.
I feel that the piece here with that mindfulness and that purpose, you know, and living purposefully, there is a level of self-responsibility of not waiting for permission to go and fertilize the egg, essentially, or, you know, to go and create whatever it is you want to create in life. And that piece is coming through a lot more. And it's something that's cool, because I feel that the more responsibility that we can take for the good, the bad, the ugly. People want to talk about, yeah, self-responsibility. Yeah, you create your own reality. What about the starving kid? I'm like this you take it too far when you talk about that. So it's like, well, self-responsibility. If you can take responsibility for what you're creating, how you're living, what you're doing with your life, how you're being, I feel that it's fulfilling. Like you mentioned, you know, I feel that is where you get the full flavor, the full zest, the full smorgasbord of all the different cuisines that life has to offer. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. So, you know, it's a never-ending journey as well. Like, how much responsibility can I take? How much permission can I give myself? How present can I be? You know, and I feel that these are quite useful questions if you want to live a life that is less than bland.
I was going to say that, bland. I mean, why would you want to, when you go to cook, why would you want to make the taste really bland and flavorless when you can make it flavorsome?
Mm.
You can find a way to make it more interesting than what you've ever done before, to make this experience as unique as possible, and to further our experience of living in this beautiful moment through that food. Are you breathing when you're eating? You know, questioning these things.
Are you chewing? Are you chewing when you're fucking eating? People just scoff the stuff down.
Are you inhaling it? Are you hoovering your food? Yeah, some people are Zen masters and other people are vacuum cleaners.
And there's nothing wrong with it as well. I think there's like the judging piece. Is like, are you hoovering it? Just be aware of it. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. Just I'm saying, have you thought about it? You know.
Yeah. Question.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm feeling to wrap up pretty soon, but I'd love to ask you. I'd love to first of all thank you. It's been a beautiful connection, and I look forward to more of it as well. I feel that there's some good to come of it. You know, we don't like to say good, but you know, some there's something positive and beneficial and magical to come of whatever wants to flow through. But what I would like to ask you is just if you to drop in now and get really present and ask yourself what really wants to come through right now to you know, there might be someone listening, someone watching who, you know, is looking for something, or, you know, who is, you know, they might be, if they're still listening this far into the conversation, you know, that they might be into what we're flowing with. So I guess don't really know how to frame this question or how to set this question up, but I guess if there's any piece coming through right now that you feel wants to really come through, yeah, I guess I invite you to open up and allow it to. I know we've been doing this the whole call, but in particular, I'm just going to put you on the spot a little bit for this one, and just to, as a finisher to leave the listeners with.
For sure, man. Yeah, what came up in that deeply was what I've noticed in people, and it's sometimes a little bit of a frustration for me, as it's in my heart space because it's not like this kind of like, oh, well, you shouldn't be frustrated. It's frustrating because I want us to go further together, this togetherness. I want humanity to grow. And so within that, the frustration is I'll ask a question or I will articulate myself as abundantly and as fruitfully as I can, with my heart just exploding into the world, saying, come at me, like I want this beauty to continue, and I'm explaining and articulating this poetically, maybe to someone, to a friend, or to a girl that I'm into, or to someone that I just want better connection with. And what I want to say to people in that is, if there's anything that you're holding back on, this is not good for your health. It's cancerous. It's really bad for you to hold on to what needs to be said. If it needs to be said, it doesn't necessarily matter how it's said. It needs to be said. People can't just do guesswork. You can't just guess what someone's thinking all the time. You could be the most connected person on the planet, the most spiritually evolved person on the planet. You can't just rely on people to guess what you're thinking and feeling. If they love you and they truly want to know what's going on with you, express it. You might not be good at it initially, but it's going to be infinitely better for you and for the person who's asking the question if you share it. If you don't hold back, don't go to sleep on an unfinished conversation, with unfinished business, with unfinished energies bound up inside your heart, in your gut. This leads to really terrible things for you later on.
It's the constipation thing, spiritual constipation thing.
Yeah, I said that going to the toilet is, I said getting rid of shit is just like going to the toilet. It needs to happen every day. And that's some real spiritual shit.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, the piece is dropping there. Thanks for that. Yeah, and sharing as well. I feel that, you know, many people have died with the song inside them. You know, that unexpressed song, or the unexpressed, the dream, or the, you know, like, so many happens, and that's why I feel I'm so excited about what I do, which is like I'm here to create a space that allows that potential to be released and to be put forth, and you know, it's a beautiful thing to witness, you know. So that reminded me of that for sure.
Yeah, man. You know, when you ask me to get really centered with it and come from within, you know, my heart is really reverberating against my chest wall right now, like really thudding hard, which says to me that was very important what I had just said. Because I wanna feel better connection with my external reality. I want people to understand me more. And I want people to be more understood. And you got to get there however you can. You can't keep things kept in. You can't keep the sunny truth that's inside you away. Sometimes things aren't they're not nice things, right? But it still needs to be said. It still needs to come out somehow. You either shit it out, sweat it out, speak it out, sing it out, rap it out, be poetic, be philosophical, whatever it is, let it flow.
Mm. The piece on that was what was just coming through there was the difficult conversations. Invite the difficult conversations and have the courage to have more of them. I can't remember who, it might have been Tim Ferriss talking about the quality of your life will be in direct proportion to how many difficult conversations you're willing to have. So it's with yourself, with the universe, with other humans.
Yeah. So also the truth may be painful at first, but it is also going to set you free.
Beautiful. Thank you, A to Z, Adam Zaks, for joining us.
It was awesome.
It's been awesome, and it's just the beginning. This is literally just the beginning. So we will be back again at another time. And yeah, you have a great evening, and let's do it again sometime.
Sure thing, man.
Till then, guys, keep the flow growing and the growth flowing.